It's Matt Chapman, and I'm here with Mala Singh, who is the Chief People Officer of Electronic Arts. Mala is in the Bay Area of San Francisco. Hello, Mala.
Hello, Matt. Always nice to see you.
Yeah, you're someone I respect so much. So I really appreciate your time. We're going to spend about 10 minutes together. And I always like to start off these discussions with a bit of an expose on your background. So give us a sense as to your career history.
I am originally from British Guyana in South America, but my family settled in New York after we immigrated to the United States. And I spent my formative years growing up just outside of New York, studied at university and received a master's degree in human resources, joined Cigna, a big insurance company, after grad school, primarily on the East Coast of the US. And then after about 5 years at Cigna, I moved on to Bristol Myers Squibb Pharma, where I was able to actually have a quite global career. Did assignments in Singapore, which is where I met you, Matt, and Europe, based out of Paris, as well as Princeton, New Jersey. After about 10 years with Bristol Myers Squibb, I joined Electronic Arts, which is a leader in interactive entertainment or video games, and moved from Paris back to Singapore. And then eventually here to the Bay Area about 10 years ago to lead components of EA. I did spend about 3 years away from EA working as a chief people officer for an e-commerce technology startup in San Francisco, very small company, early phase, venture backed, but then returned to EA about 3.5 years ago as the head of people.
So beautiful, multi-faceted backgrounds, both industry, geographies, which puts you in a really interesting place to navigate through current times. What has this been like for you and Electronic Arts?
I could never have imagined us leading through a crisis of this proportion and magnitude. It's I would say it's both the most stressful time I've had in my career, but also the most exhilarating in a lot of ways, because we chose to look at this in the early days as a crisis, but also an opportunity. And an opportunity to affirm our values, an opportunity to reaffirm the contract and relationship between us and our workforce, and do a whole lot of things differently that we never thought we were able to do. So it's been quite an intense 6 months, I have to say, because we're a global company. We're in 25 countries with 48 offices. As the pandemic emerged in Asia, we had to respond very quickly and deal with our people and their experiences in Shanghai and Seoul and Singapore. And that allowed us to refine our practices because we weren't a work from home kind of company. And as the pandemic continued and we saw sites affected in Europe, it gave us an opportunity to continuously learn and improve what we were doing. But in a matter of weeks, we ended up in a space of where the entire company is working from home and has been since early March. And so I would never have anticipated navigating through this, but I lead this process for our company as the C-suite leader who is responsible for helping us navigate this crisis in a way that gets us to a place of affirming our values around health, safety, well-being of our people while still delivering our goals of the business.
So we talked earlier about previous views around distributed working and the need for people to fundamentally be in the office to do their best work, but perspective changing on that. Tell us more.
Yeah. So what we do is at the intersection of creative and technology. We're an entertainment company and we're a technology company. And building games is a very creative endeavor. And there's a special magic to that. The ability for people to gather around someone's monitor and look at a piece of concept art and decide and make decisions around that, or the ability for teams to step up to a large whiteboard and sketch out the level of a game design around a level in the game, or step away from a really intractable, difficult problem and play some games together or billiards together so that they can kind of switch their mindset and problem solve. All of those things are things that we notice about how our teams work together. And so pre-pandemic, we had less than 5% of the company globally who worked from home in any capacity or worked remotely in any capacity. Post-pandemic, that number will change dramatically. And we don't know yet how much of our team will be distributed, but we do know a couple of things. One is that people want much more flexibility than we've had in the past. We operate in some very high cost geographies where the cost of housing is difficult and people have long commutes. And we know that people wanted more opportunities for remote work. Now we very quickly tested that model and realized there are plenty of roles in the company that can be done just as effectively remotely. That said, though, one of the things we're cautious about is we don't want to let 4 to 6 months of acute adrenaline fueled crisis management define what our work model is for the future. And so while we know we're going to be more distributed, we're being cautious in our approach and really thinking through who we are, what we do, and asking ourselves these questions around whether we can create the magic of making games with the entire team distributed. We'll learn a lot over the next few months as we continue to navigate this crisis.
Now, you've been using employee engagement surveys to kind of track the effectiveness of I guess this evolution. Has there been any interesting insights coming through these surveys?
Sure, there has. One of the things that's been really interesting for us, we started a journey several years ago around transforming our people function. And in partnership with our chief information officer, our CIO, we've been investing in workplace technology that makes people's working more seamless and driving more collaboration. So we put in place tools like Google Suite that allows people to collaborate on documents, or Slack as an instant messaging tool. We refined how people connect into the network when they're not here. And so those were all investments we made because we wanted people to have a strong and positive work experience at EA from a technology perspective. Those things enabled us to move to work from home. And I'd love to say that that was prescient and anticipated a global pandemic that would require all of us to be working from home, but that was not the case. So when we moved people to work from home, one of the first things we did is we created an always on, what we call our always on coronavirus survey. And it was a way for us to very regularly get feedback from people at any point in time. People could just jump in and tell us, how safe do you feel? Are you getting the right amount of communication? What else do you need to help you be more effective? So that was our tool to make sure that we had a continuous flow of feedback from our workers. Then most recently, we completed our engagement survey, which we do twice a year. And we were able to see, I was blown away by the strength of scores. We had 92% participation and an ESAT, or employee satisfaction score, of 80, which is a record for electronic arts. And what people reported is that they feel incredibly well supported. They appreciated the speed and proactiveness with which we acted. They appreciated that we were clear and that we were prioritizing their safety and well-being, and that they actually saw those words translated into action in terms of the support that we provided. We are up on every single dimension that we measure, and there are 25 dimensions we measure in the survey, up on every single dimension with the exception of one. And the one that declined is work-life balance. And this is not going to surprise you. And it's particularly acute for those who are caregivers, parents and others caring for example, elderly people in their lives. And so the next focus area for us as a company is how we solve for things like parental support. Because in many of our geographies, schooling and childcare is disrupted, and people are really struggling to figure out how to find that balance between caring for young children or schooling young children and delivering their roles. So we're working through that right now.
That's probably a good segue into the talent strategy process, which I know you were saying is a major focus at the moment. But just what you said around some cross sections of the workforce really having a lot more complications in their life now, which are testing their ability to do their jobs well, but they still have every bit of potential and potentially can rise through this. How do we deal with this?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things. One, as a company, in some geographies in the world, including my own, we can't rely on government systems to actually provide support to people. So we have to step up as a private sector and as companies in thinking through how we support people. So that's number one. The second thing is we have to introduce more flexibility. And so we are trying to be flexible with parents. For example, we said to people, look, if you are in a situation where you can't be as productive that day because you need to take care of your kids or something is going on in your household, that's okay. You don't have to take paid time off or vacation time or sick time. And so we implemented flexible leave policies that enable people to just do what they need to do to survive this very acute crisis period. Over the long haul, though, I think what we're going to find is that people are going to need more flexibility, things like part-time work, flexible work schedules that allow them to maybe flex their time so that they can be with their children in the early hours of the day and maybe refocus on work later in the day. And so what we're trying to do is really get feedback from people on what their biggest issues and challenges are and problem solve based on the data and what people are actually telling us their needs are. I won't sit here and pretend to know what everybody needs because everybody's situation is different. But what we're doing is we're equipping managers to have the conversations they need to have with their talent to understand their unique issues and then work with my team to problem solve for every individual in the best ways that we can.
And that's Mala Singh, Chief People Officer for Electronic Arts in San Francisco. Thanks, Mala. You can see why these moments are very special. Thanks for your perspectives.
Thank you, Matt.